Story 1: The Empty Ward Patient. There's a reason I don't work night shifts anymore. It's not the bad hours or the vending machine coffee that tastes like burnt pennies. It's because of what happened on the 4th floor of St. Jude's Hospital last November. If you work in healthcare, you know every hospital has that one wing everyone avoids. Pray you never get assigned to yours. My name is Sarah, and I was a CNA on the MedSurg unit. We were short-staffed that night, which was typical. It was just me and the charge nurse Barb, a tough older woman who had seen everything. Around 2:00 a.m., the unit settled into that eerie, heavy silence that only happens in hospitals. The 4th floor east wing was currently closed for renovations. It was sealed off by thick plastic sheeting taped to the walls. Behind that plastic, it was just long, dark corridors and 20 empty patient rooms stripped bare. I was at the nurse's station restocking gloves when the call light board buzzed. The sound made me jump, spilling a box of medium latex gloves all over the floor. I looked up at the board. The red light was glowing steadily next to room 412. My stomach dropped. Room 412 was deep inside the closed east wing. "Barb," I whispered. She was staring at the board too, her coffee cup frozen halfway to her mouth. "Probably just an electrical glitch," Barb said, but her voice was too tight. "Old wiring acting up with the construction." She told me to go down to the junction box outside the plastic barrier and reset the panel. I didn't want to go near that wing, but you don't argue with Barb. Walking down the hallway felt wrong. The air got colder the closer I got to the plastic barrier. The lights in our active wing seemed to dim, casting long, weird shadows. I reached the junction box right outside the taped-up entrance. Through the translucent plastic, I could see the vague shapes of the abandoned hallway. It looked dead grey. I hit the reset button on the panel. The red light on the board down the hall flickered off. Okay, just a glitch. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and turned to walk back. Buzz. It was louder this time. I spun around. The light for 412 was back on. Barb walked up behind me, looking pale under the fluorescent lights. "It's not resetting," she muttered. "We have to physically go into the room and turn it off at the bedside wall unit. Fire marshal regulations." "Are you serious, Barb? That wing is condemned right now." "Just come with me, Sarah. It'll take 2 minutes." She sliced through the duct tape holding the plastic sheets together. A smell hit us immediately. It wasn't the smell of construction dust or paint. It smelled like old copper and spoiled milk. We stepped through. The silence in the east wing was different. It felt heavy, like the air was thicker. We used our phone flashlights, the beams cutting through the dusty darkness. We walked past open doorways of empty rooms. No beds, no curtains, just bare drywall. We got to 412. The door was closed. Barb hesitated, her hand hovering over the handle. Before she could touch it, we heard something from inside. It was a faint, wet rattle, like air struggling through fluid in someone's lungs. I grabbed Barb's arm. "Did you hear that?" She didn't answer. She just pushed the door open. My flashlight beam swept the room. It should have been empty. It wasn't. There was an old hospital bed in the center of the room, the kind with the manual cranks they stopped using 20 years ago. Lying on the bare mattress, curled into a fetal position, was a person. They were wearing a faded, yellowed hospital gown. Their back was to us. They were impossibly thin, the spine pushing sharp against the fabric. "Sir," Barb's voice shook, "you can't be in here." The figure didn't move, but that wet rattling sound came again, louder this time. It sounded like it was coming from deep inside their chest. Then slowly, the figure began to turn over. The movement was jerky, unnatural, like a stop-motion puppet. When the face came into the light, I swear my heart stopped. It was a man, maybe 50, but his skin was the color of old putty, and his eyes were clouded over completely white, like cataracts but thicker. He wasn't blinking. He looked at us, or at least in our direction. His jaw went slack, opening way too wide, and he let out a sound that wasn't a scream. It was a monotone, vibrating hum that seemed to rattle my own teeth. I saw the call light cord wrapped tightly around his bony wrist. He was pulling it over and over. I didn't wait for Barb. I turned and ran. I bolted through the dark hallway, tore through the plastic sheeting, and didn't stop until I was in the stairwell, gasping for air. Barb came out a minute later. She looked sick. She grabbed my shoulders hard. "You saw nothing, Sarah," she hissed, her eyes wild. We went in, it was a homeless guy squatting, security chased him off. End of story, do you understand? I just nodded, too terrified to speak. We finished the shift in silence. The call light for 412 never went off again that night. I put in my 2 weeks' notice the next morning. I couldn't walk down those halls anymore. I couldn't stop thinking about how that man looked. He didn't look alive, but he didn't look dead either. He looked preserved. Here's the part that really messes with me. A few days before I left for good, I was cleaning out my locker in the break room. I overheard 2 of the hospital administrators talking out in the hall. They were arguing in hushed tones about Project Lazarus and how the subject in the East Wing was becoming active again. They stopped talking when I walked out. I don't know what they were doing in that closed wing. I don't want to know. But sometimes, when it's really quiet in my new apartment, I can still hear that wet, rattling breath and that low, vibrating hum. And I know that some hospital doors should never be opened. Story 2, security cam glitch. The police report called it a technical malfunction. They said the old wiring in the security hub shorted out, corrupting the hard drives. But I know what I saw on monitor 4 last Tuesday, and I know it's the reason I haven't slept through the night since. My name is Mark, and up until 3 days ago, I worked the graveyard shift security at the Eastern Tech Park. It was supposed to be the easiest job on the planet while I finished my online classes. It was basically 6 hours of sitting in a lukewarm guard booth, drinking terrible vending machine coffee, and staring at a wall of 12 monitors showing empty parking lots and silent office lobbies. Nothing ever happened. It was boring, sure, but it was safe. It started around 2:45 a.m. The complex was dead quiet, the kind of heavy silence you only get in industrial parks late at night. I was fighting to stay awake, scrolling on my phone, when movement caught my periphery. I looked up. It was Monitor 9, covering the underground parking garage of buildings. See that garage is deep underground and always completely empty at night. The screen was flickering bad. Heavy digital artifacting, huge blocks of green and purple pixels tearing across the grey image. Through the static, for just a fraction of a second, I swore I saw someone standing near the elevators. I sat up straight, spilling hot coffee on my hand. I ignored the burn and grabbed the mouse, clicking to maximize Monitor 9. The picture stabilized, just concrete pillars and empty spaces under buzzing fluorescent lights. Nothing. Piece of junk, I muttered, wiping coffee off the desk. I figured it was just the old system acting up. The cameras were cheap when they were installed 10 years ago. I tried to settle back down, but the vibe in the booth had changed. It felt smaller. 20 minutes later, it happened again. This time it wasn't just a flicker. Monitor 9 went totally grey for 3 seconds. When the picture snapped back, the figure was there. It wasn't a glitch this time. It was tall, blurred like a smudge on the lens, just standing motionless in the center aisle of the garage. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the desk phone to call the local PD non-emergency line, but I stopped when I looked closely at the screen. The timestamp in the corner of Monitor 9 was wrong. My phone and the wall clock said it was 3:07 a.m. The timestamp on the camera feed read 3:15 a.m. It was showing me footage from 8 minutes in the future. I stared at it, my brain trying to rationalize it. Latency issue, clock error. While I watched, the blurred figure on the screen suddenly jerked its head up, looking directly into the security camera lens. Then the figure started walking toward the garage exit ramp, toward my booth. Panic seized me. If the timestamp was right, this thing was already on its way up here. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight and bolted out of the booth, locking the door behind me. I needed to put distance between me and whatever that was. I headed toward the main plaza, away from the garage entrance. The night air was freezing. My footsteps echoed too loudly on the pavement. I hid behind a large concrete planter, my heart hammering against my ribs, watching the booth I had just left. I checked my phone, 3:14 a.m. A minute passed, it felt like an hour. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the lights inside my guard booth suddenly flared bright white, then shut off completely. The door, which I had definitely locked, slowly swung open. I didn't see anyone go in. I didn't see anyone come out, but I could hear the radio inside the booth shrieking with static. I didn't stick around to play hero. I ran to my car and tore out of that parking lot so fast I almost took out the gate. I quit via email the next morning. I didn't care about the paycheck anymore. The cops found nothing wrong with the booth, other than the fried camera system. They think I made it up to get out of work. But here's the thing that keeps replaying in my head. When I looked at that future feed on monitor 9, right before the figure started walking, it didn't just look at the camera, it smiled, and it looked exactly like me. Story 3, the call from the morgue. I am telling you this because I need someone else to know the truth before I completely lose my mind. If you have ever worked a graveyard shift, you know the silence I am talking about. It is not a peaceful silence. It is heavy, like the building is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I worked security at Oak Valley General, a mid-sized hospital in a sleepy part of Ohio. It was the kind of job where you spent 6 hours watching dust motes dance in the security monitor lights, and the other 2 hours trying not to fall asleep over a cold burrito from the gas station across the street. The hospital was old, with a basement that felt like it belonged in a different century. That is where the morgue was. Most nights I never had to go down there. The mortician, a guy named Miller, usually left by midnight, locking the heavy steel doors behind him. But last Friday, the air felt different. It was humid, and the hospital's air conditioning was humming with this low-frequency buzz that made the hair on my arms stand up. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the phone on my desk rang. In the middle of the night, that sound is like a gunshot. I looked at the caller ID, expecting it to be a nurse from the 3rd floor complaining about a broken vending machine. Instead, the screen read extension 4. My heart did a slow, painful thud against my ribs. Extension 4 was the internal line for the morgue intake desk. I picked it up, my hand shaking just a little. I said hello, but there was nothing but static at first. It was that thick, wet-sounding static, like someone was rubbing a piece of velvet over the microphone. Then a voice came through. It was a woman's voice, whispery and thin. She said, "Jason, it is so cold. Why is it so cold in here?" The blood drained out of my face. That voice belonged to my sister, Sarah, but Sarah died in a car accident 3 years ago. I sat there, paralyzed, gripping the receiver so hard my knuckles turned white. I told myself it was a prank. Someone had figured out my sister's name and was messing with me. I slammed the phone down, my heart racing. 5 minutes later it rang again, same extension. I did not want to answer it, but I felt this sick, magnetic pull. I picked it up and didn't say a word. The voice was louder this time, more desperate. "Jason, they are coming to get me. I am in the drawer. Please, Jason, open the drawer." I dropped the phone and bolted out of the security office. I did not call the police or the night supervisor. I was in a state of pure adrenaline-fueled panic. I ran to the elevators and hit the button for the basement. I had to know. I had to prove to myself that the morgue was empty and that I was just losing my grip on reality. The elevator doors opened to a hallway lit by flickering yellow bulbs. The smell of industrial bleach and something sweet and rotting hit me instantly. I walked toward the morgue doors, my footsteps echoing like hammers. I reached the steel doors and found them slightly ajar. Miller never left them open. Never. I pushed the door open and stepped into the intake room. It was freezing, way colder than it should have been. The only sound was the hum of the refrigeration units. On the stainless steel desk, the phone was sitting off the hook. I walked over to it, my legs feeling like lead. I picked up the receiver and held it to my ear. I could hear my own breathing, but I also heard a faint, rhythmic tapping. Click, click, click. It was coming from the wall of cooling drawers. I turned my flashlight toward the metal doors. Drawer 14 was vibrating. Something was hitting the metal from the inside. I approached it, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I grabbed the handle and pulled. The drawer slid open with a screeching sound. The body bag inside was empty. No, that is not right. It was not empty. There was a cell phone sitting in the middle of the black plastic. My sister's phone, the one that was crushed in the wreck. It was lit up, showing a missed call to my extension. I felt a cold hand touch the back of my neck. I spun around, swinging my flashlight, but there was no one there. Then I looked down at the intake log on the desk. There was a new entry written in fresh, wet ink. The name on the log was my own, Jason Miller. Time of death, 3:15 a.m. I looked at my watch. It was 3:15 a.m. I turned to run, but the heavy steel doors to the morgue slammed shut. I pulled at the handle, but it would not budge. I am still here. I am writing this on my phone while I sit in the corner of the room, watching the drawers. I can hear them opening one by one. If you are reading this and your phone rings from a number you do not recognize, do not answer it. Some voices are not looking for a conversation. They are looking for company.